Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be in the workshop working on my new racing lawnmower. This thing was built by an F1 engineer over 20 years ago. I recently bought it, and in this video, we're going to start work on it, fabricate a load of parts, and then begin prepping it for paint. Now, let me explain what's going on. Last year, I raced my blue lawn bug, which I bought a few years ago, throughout the full season of the BLMRA, as well as some other races. Now, I heard through a few people at the club that a previous member was selling a lawn bug. Now, a few people reached out to me because they knew I was looking for a really solid chassis, and all of them said one thing. It was built by a Formula One engineer on his lunch breaks and spare time at the Ferrari factory in the UK. Now, I didn't want to pass up that opportunity to buy something like that, so I reached out to him. It turns out a friend of his now owned it, and so I went over and I took a look at it. And when I first saw it, it sat in a garage for a few years and it was looking a bit worse for wear, but I managed to negotiate what I thought was a great price and brought it back to my workshop, and that's where we'll pick up the story now. It's got a couple of neat things. Let me show you. Here we go then. So, first of all is these rose joints. So this is the steering. You'll notice I'm missing a wheel. That's because I've got something new coming for that. But in here, these rose joints make a massive difference. If you can imagine, you've got a lot of forces coming through the middle of the tyre, which is here. And therefore, to minimize bump steer, which is really physical and really hard work on these mowers, you want these rose joints to be as close to the center line of the wheel as possible. Now, on my previous mower, it's easier on this side, they were a long way out. They were a long way away from the wheel. That's exaggerating, but they were similar to that. Now, on this mower, this front end is all rigged up and all nicely welded, so this is good. So first of all, the front end is good. That's great. Next of all is that the chassis is really nice and strong. It's also got this very cool clutch actuation in there. So the clutch is down in the bottom there. And so this is very nice. I know I was going to need to change that on my old one anyway. And also you can see there's a few elements that show where this thing was made. These are custom made TIG welded titanium pedals. Look how cool they are. Now, this isn't the reason to buy this thing, but it's one of the cool things that come with it. Obviously, this isn't connected up at the moment because I'm having to do a lot of changes. So that's where we're at. We've got our new Lonsin engine on there, which is a big upgrade from the previous video. If you saw that, where I was a little bit down on power with my old Honda engine. However, these are really big. So what came with it was this. Now, this was what was on there. And so we're having to remake this to make it fit an A-frame that bends around this. Now, what you want on this lawnmower is the steering wheel as far forward as possible. That means more of your weight is over the front wheel, so you have more grip, and also for packaging. If you can sit further forward, it means it's closer to 50-50 weight distribution because your arse is really right over the rear axle. This is a work in progress. We're going to also have strengthening bars in here and also across the middle, where we're going to have all of the start button and everything for the electric start and the cutoff. And so that's going to be working there. Now, there are a few interesting things about this lawnmower, but for me to explain, let me show you my previous one. Now, on my previous chassis, it has a karting brake caliper. On this one, we actually have a master cylinder from a Mini. So that sits tucked up under here, which is an unconventional place to mount it, but actually, I don't hate it. I think that's kind of cool. I had to buy a new one of these because the old one was broken, but that then mounts to this pedal here, which is pretty cool. So I've had to get that bled up. There is a brake line that runs from front to back to a brake caliper that is slung underneath the back of it. So that's unusual, but actually I don't hate it. I think it's pretty cool. So one of the first jobs I was tackling before getting into the meat of this episode was sorting the back of my seat. Now, this is so I can test it, see how it fits, etc. Now, the front of this, I peeled off a Ford Focus seat I got off Facebook Marketplace. I'm using the foam from that, and then I like using this spray adhesive because I know I'm very much in the testing phase of this. I'm sort of sticking it, seeing how it feels, adjusting it. The spray adhesive you can peel back, take some foam out and then stick it in. Now, you might see behind me is Paul, my father-in-law, who is arriving with some parts for me. Ooh, thank you. So I didn't show you earlier, but this is what Paul brought around. My father-in-law, who has been very kindly welding and making all of this stuff. So this is actually quite an unconventional tank for a lawnmower. I tried to find some of the other ones like we had at the 12-hour, I'll show that now. But this is a 4.5 litre fuel tank, which is the maximum we're allowed to run in our rules. But I believe it's for like a diesel gas heater for a camper van. That's why it's got this like mount on it that my hand goes in there. And you can actually put the drain wherever you like. So I've fitted it on there. This is then a bracket, which is angle iron around the corners with a bit of foam in there to cushion it a bit, and then braced from a couple of locations on the engine. So there's a bolt hole back there you can use, there's a bolt hole here, and then there is also a bolt hole on the starter motor that we can pick up on, and then nice big bolts. So that's where the majority of the support is going to come from. And then little pieces of 3mm thick steel, and then some bent sheet metal around the side. Now I'm going to have to round this off because I think it might be too sharp for the rules, so I'm going to bend this back on itself. I'm going to have a bungee, 2 bungees maybe, come around there, or maybe a ratchet strap or something to hold this in from coming out. But I'm quite happy with how that has gone together. Next job is going to be creating mud flaps. Now, I had a go at this earlier. We had a mat that was used as like a foot mat for going in and out the back of the house, and I was thinking that would be good here. I even shaved off some of these, but I think this is going to get clogged up full of mud super quick, and that's going to like get curled up and in there, and that's not the right thing. This is like rally mud flap material, or for like the underside of rally cars in places, and so I think this will be better. Now, there are certain rules for this, so you have to have from the bottom of the mower only an inch to the floor. What I'm going to do is make this oversized, then when I've got the mower back on the floor, I can trim them to what I want to be. But actually on this mower already, there's 2 welded nuts on the back here, so I'm going to utilise those 2 and get that going. It's going to sit like that, loads of excess, that's all right. There we go, had to do this off camera because it died, but material on there is pretty stiff actually. I can't see a world where that gets plugged up with mud and gets up in there. That's what you kind of see, is lots of mud flaps ending up like above the tyre and dragging, so that's pretty good. I think I've got them on there with some nice short bolts and big washers. On to the next thing. Next thing is this. This is the T-drive that goes on the rear axle. Now, I've already got one that's almost brand new in there, but this is the one that came with that mower and is going to go back on there because it fits the clutch splines here. Now, this mower hasn't been used in a long time. I also imagine the oil in here is probably what was in there since new, so I'm gonna drain it. Automatic transmission fluid, and that's going to go in there. Now, is this metric or imperial? Now we play the game. Was it 24? Oh, incredible. Didn't need all of those. It's going to be interesting to see if this is okay oil actually. Looks okay. Let's have a look. Or is there almost none in there? Ah. Yeah, that looks like there's not much in there and it's pretty dark. It's not awful. Certainly not great though, and a little bit speckly. Not great. Next task then is going to be to put half a litre of this automatic transmission oil in here. This has been draining out for 15-20 minutes, something like that. Yeah, oh, I'm sure everyone watching this knows what that smells like, but I don't like it. Yeah, I think I actually poured it ever so slightly over the half a litre, so that will do. Like that, that'll do. bit noisier than my other one. We'll see how long it survives. So I've had to trim the foam down here because these two were pushing too hard against each other. I'm going to figure out a mounting mechanism there, but I'm quite happy with how this feels. It's firm, but nice and supportive. All right, back to day 2. Next job is going to be getting this engine off. It currently isn't attached to the engine plate, so we need to fix that. Drill some new holes, get it fitted on. I didn't clear this up. Oof. Got the 4 bolts in there. Managed to find an M10 bolt to do it. Oof. Lovely. Hey. So now that slides back and forth on those. Earlier I had to have half my oil all over the floor. So today, now we're going to change the oil. And also I've got a slight upgrade. So look at this, long sin's on here, I've then got the engine plate on. Now you'll notice that we have the oil filter on the lawn sins in the way of the clutch pedal. Now this mower was built with a Tecumseh and a Honda that don't have one of these. So I have a solution. We have an oil filter. So that is then going to look more like that. Dropped all the oil out of there, it's all gone where I wanted. That's what it looks like. It's not too bad. Still pretty green. Bit of black in there, but that's okay. Right, it's been a day or so since I filmed anything. I've just been doing little jobs and focusing on things. So let me show you what I've been doing. Firstly, in the back of my mind, I'm getting this ready for paint. And so it's got this powder coat on it. I'm half tempted to get it sandblasted and get the whole lot off. But also, I know I'm going to have to change more on this mower before we get on with any, through the season. So I don't really want to get a really nice powder coat and sandblast and everything. So I'm seeing if I can sand some of this back, get it to look good, but it looks even worse on camera. So I might be getting this sandblasted. Then we got the engine back on. I've run out of oil. I need to order some new stuff. So I've gone down there so I don't accidentally start it or test anything. I'm also cleaning this up. This is the battery box and it looks pretty gross. It's been sat there for a while, and it's been unprotected while it's been doing that. So I've been sanding this back. It had some paint on it, so I've been getting that off. Getting that sorted. Obviously got the new shorter oil filter on, and you can see it's much better. It's more clear than it was anyway of the pedal. Still a little bit in the way, but it's not too bad. And then this is my fuel tank holder. I've just hammered in the back edges there so there aren't any sharp edges on here, and then primed it so it doesn't rust. And then once we decide on a colour, this can get painted. Now, speaking of which, I've been prototyping some designs because I cannot decide what colour to go. I was previously this teal colour. That's because I was racing in Caterham and that was the colour it was. Whereas now I'm trying to decide what to go with. Now, I can't... Right, let me show you what I'm thinking. Here are my prototypes. Now, you can see I've drawn up the mower based on a picture. And then I'm thinking either this colour, so this teal that I was before, and then a similar blue to my kit, or this one with more of a pink. Now I'm torn because you want it to stand out, but I also want it to match what I'm wearing and all that stuff. Really, the kit's really expensive and the helmet's really expensive, so I want to pick a colour that goes with those. If you have any suggestions, drop them in the comments. So we headed over to my father-in-law's on the weekend to get some work done on this mower, and this is the seat we're working on. So it was actually made out of a bed frame. It's what we had to hand, but the metal suits well. So here we're going to be working on that, as well as this is the new A-frame. So this is going to be supporting the steering. You can see we're adding reinforcements there that reaches over the engine. And then also adding these side bars to the seats, so this will hold me in and also support the foam that's going to go in there. So we're tacking this up, checking it's okay, and then getting it all welded up. Right, since that last clip, a lot has changed. You might notice I've completely stripped down my mower. So let me explain where we're at. I think we've got most of the bits pretty well figured out. So we've got the engine plate set up, the engine fits. We've got some bits that are coming for the front end. So we're having some parts machined, including the parts that go in here. So the stub axles as well as the steering beam. All of that is in the works. So while I'm waiting on all those things, I've prepped it down and I've started sanding it back. Now, I could have it shot blasted and then powder coated and all of that stuff done, but I'm sure I'm gonna have to modify this mower over the season. Things aren't gonna be quite right. Don't forget, I haven't ridden this yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the best paint job I can do in my garage cheaply. And so, you can see I've primed a lot of the bits, I've sanded stuff back. There's other parts I couldn't get to until I've stripped it apart. So I need to clean, sand and prep this whole chassis to get everything going. Now the next question is, what color are you going to paint it? And I've decided now, and I've brought some cans of paint. Now that looks like this. So we're going to have the chassis rails going in this nice teal. And then the main blue, which is very similar to my kit, I'm going to have on the various bits of bodywork. So we've got this paint arrived. This is all stuff that I think will go on quite well, and then primer as well. So over the next week, I'm going to be working on that. So with that said, I'm going to end this video. Do give me any feedback. This is the first time we've done any of this. And in the next video, you're going to see the process of getting this all painted and then getting the whole thing reassembled. See you in that one.